welcome to a Halloween themed discussion episode that we are having with the brothers Crin about the 1999 Brendan Fraser horror reboot vehicle, The Mummy. How are you guys doing today?
We're pretty good, I guess. Good, if a little tired.
Understandable. It's Sunday. It's a kind of a tiring day. 2 days before Halloween, and we were just kind of shooting the breeze for a minute.
Yep. And this is a movie which, honestly, um, it might sound weird, but growing up, I thought this was the greatest horror movie of the 90s. And now that I'm adult, actually saw a horror movie I kind of liked better from that same era. But on the other hand, I know that this is tied in first place no matter what.
Can I ask what that one was?
That was The House of Frankenstein, 1997. First time I saw it was a few days ago. I was very impressed. Really tight writing. They went back to the three core Universal monsters: Frankenstein, the Wolfman, or in this case, the Wolfwoman, and Dracula. Except you have a murder mystery tying them all together.
Interesting. I have to check that out.
Yeah. Well, we could always do another stream like this for that one
Yeah,
on the road.
I'll have to see if I can find. Is it on streaming or is it one of those ones that you have to seek out?
I think you have to seek out.
Okay.
It's You could find it on Google and try to buy the DVD. It's on sale generally for $12. But well, shipping should be much cheaper over where you are, so
Yeah,
it shouldn't be too much.
I've been hitting up Amazon a lot for horror movies that I missed out on, or I'm.
Well, this one's not on Amazon.
Oh, I
It's
just
on.
meant like the actual Amazon storefront, not the.
Mm,
Yeah,
okay.
I've been DVD hunting because since everybody's trying to push physical media out of the picture, I want to grab as many physical copies of films I grew up with as possible.
Same.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Physical media is king.
Yep,
If you
always.
don't, and it's why I'm also keen to get my hands on as many French novels as possible, like Le Comte de Monte Cristo. And I'm hoping to also get my mitts on a physical copy of Les Trois Mousquetaires
Hmm.
and Either Way. Basically, Alex Dumas works and
Okay.
whatnot. And maybe the Aeneid in French. But, that said, this time around, it's the Mummy.
The mommy.
Well, yeah. We could make it a bit about waking up early in the morning on the wrong side of the bed, but that would probably lose us all our female viewers. We do play a substantial portion of the audience, so
Well, to be fair, a lot of this story does hinge on a woman, so
yeah.
no matter how old you are, be it 30 years or 3,000 years, we are all driven by the female of the species.
Yeah. But in this case, the writing in the original, well, I say original, but it's the 1999 remake, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
This movie has got to be in the top two greatest horror movies of the 90s.
It is so solid. Like I rewatched it last night and I was impressed because I think the last time I saw it was right around early 2000s, and I remember watching the first and second one, and I enjoyed both of those. I didn't watch the third one.
The third one was terrible.
Mm.
The second one was actually I like it as much as the first one.
Yeah, yeah. I was kind of weirded out by the CG Dwayne The Rock Johnson at the end, but it
Yeah,
was
that's the weird part.
yeah, it was off putting. I was like,
But
we're not quite there yet.
I'll take that CG over today's though.
That is fair, considering the drop off in quality of VFX.
Yeah.
from now to back then. Like I really do enjoy the special effects. Like even the at the end of this movie, when you could tell a lot of it is a lot of green screen stuff that was going on.
Mhm.
It was still kind of it still fit and it felt like it worked with what you were doing.
Mm. And what's more is that this film, there's a lot of, it feels very Pulp Fiction-ish.
Yes, yes,
Like like it's coming out of that era from the 1900s to the 1940s in terms of literature, and
yeah.
it just feels really vivid and great, and the characters are wonderful. And to be honest, now I'm going to ask, have you ever read the Dracula novel by Bram
Actually,
Stoker?
surprisingly, I had it and I read about maybe probably the first half of the book, and then I lost it in the airport that I was in. It wasn't an airport. It was a I want to say it was a bus terminal or something like that. We were in the middle of traveling for the holidays, and I had that and A Christmas Carol, like both novels, and I don't
Well,
know what happened to them, like in between getting from where I left to where I went.
well, honestly, I wish that there had been an actually faithful adaptation made in the 90s and that Brendan Fraser had been cast as Quincy Morris.
Hmm.
He's just, he plays the same character in this film, Rick O'Connell.
Yeah.
And honestly, the heroes are lovable and heroic. The villain is pitiable but also despicable,
Hmm.
as are many of the other villains, and such as Benny. And this is this is a movie with such tight writing, and even the prologue plays out in a very tight manner. And like first time viewers might think, well, what does this have? Like what's with the prologue? But then once the movie gets started with Rick O'Connell, played by Brendan Fraser, probably in his best role,
Hmm.
the ball really starts to get rolling. And honestly, Anuk Sonamoon, you're kind of what's really funny is how she ends up being kind of in some ways scummier than Imhotep.
Yeah, especially just how the whole situation was handled in the origin.
Yeah, yeah. Although that said, Seti had taken up with a young woman who I got the impression there was maybe something already between Anuk Sonamun and Imhotep before the
Mhm.
whole Seti. So it's kind of like you, dude, you took a girl who was already taken. I know she's beautiful, but you kind of bring it on yourself.
She was definitely a trophy wife.
Yeah, and I kind of find that I lack a lot of sympathy for Seti.
I could see that because I feel like just that whole situation. I don't think they had any romantic connection, and he clearly was. Like I joke about the trophy wife thing, but you can clearly tell that she was just there to be his arm piece.
Yep, and she was clearly not destined for the role of queen
Hmm.
or great wife, as the Egyptians probably would have called it. So really, he's her life is one she's trapped in a seraglio, really, with only the occasional priest for company. So like, what do you expect?
Yeah, yeah.
For Imhotep, he has a pulse, and she's clearly beautiful. So I only say he has a pulse because the actress is remarkably good looking.
She was stunning. Like, and just that
Yeah.
whole thing walking around in the slight gold tint paint and everything. I was like, whew. I just, I forgot we used to live in a time period where attractive women could be attractive.
Yeah, not anymore.
It's yeah. Not to get too political, yes.
But you have, of course, the curse that's put on Imhotep after Anuk-Senamun commits suicide,
Hmm.
and you have the seven plagues of Egypt that will be unleashed by Imhotep should he ever be brought back, because they cast the Hom-Dai upon him. Which, just why? Like,
The
what
hum
are you thinking?
That was
That
a
curse.
brutal punishment.
They weren't kidding around.
But
Though I wouldn't want any of anyone to really, like, I despise to come back.
yeah,
But
yeah,
on the other hand, I can think of a few people I'd hate enough to
cast
chuck
it on.
such suffering upon. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a brutal punishment, but the result was immortality and possible like nigh invulnerability.
and the end of the world
Yeah, in
to
the
the
end of the
seven.
world. Exactly.
It,
It's
it just,
like you could just kill him and be done with it.
you should have just let Ahmed have it way with him.
Pretty much.
Mm.
But apparently, the plot did not let allow for that to happen, so to speak.
Ahmed, the dog crocodile. You know,
Oh yeah, yeah. After Osiris is done judging alongside Thoth. Yeah, yeah. Definitely should have done that. But and after the prologue ends, we've got Rick O'Connell's escape from. There's the dog. And we have Rick O'Connell's escape from Hamanaptra. I just love how Benny just tells him after the one officer escapes. Looks like you just got promoted.
And proceeds to
With
take off.
yeah, and I just like the looks like you just got promoted.
Yeah,
And
field promotions or something else.
yeah. The funny thing is though, Rick O'Connell, well, Brendan Fraser actually does pronounce his French mostly correctly. Prenez votre position. But he forgot to tell them "tirez" or "til," which is to say fire. But overall, the the I don't know. Like, the thing about that scene is you don't know whether to hold your breath or to laugh, which is often the problem with Stephen Sommers. You don't know sometimes whether to laugh or to hold your breath in. And
Yeah, there was a lot of comedy in that scene where I was like, this doesn't look like it's going to work out very well for them.
mm-mm. And it's a very unique horror movie. And that's really the rule with this film. It's a very unique horror. Because Stephen Sommers, he's aiming for a pulp feel, but he's also aiming for like, it's not really a comedy. And because when you actually think about things on a macro level, this movie is not funny.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of blood and guts and gore, and there's a lot of murder. But on a micro level, scene by scene, you get the occasional joke.
Kind of like dark
And
comedy. Just a little
Yes.
tidbit. Yeah.
Yeah, and it does it while telling a very serious story. And when you compare it to, for example, the Dracula movie of that era, which was terrible,
Mm.
from '92.
Yeah. I think the only thing I enjoyed about that movie was I think Gary Oldman can play pretty much anything he wants. But beyond that, it's just like, eh.
Yeah, but he was better as Jim Gordon.
Oh, he was
Um,
fantastic as Jim Gordon.
And let's see. The trouble is, I think that, like, I think that while a lot of people criticize Van Helsing, I really like that movie, but I think that there's a certain tone to Stephen Sommer films, and that on the one hand, by the time of the third Mummy movie, Sommers was tired.
Mm.
I think that on the other hand, the problem I have is that he's not been given another shot. When he's a very talented director, like every shot in this film is beautiful and is a masterclass of direction. Same goes for the, I think it's 1994 Jungle Book film.
Oh, that was
And
great. Yeah.
oh yeah, that's Stephen Sommers. He was great. He knows how to write, direct, and produce. And if there was anyone who should have made probably all the Universal monster films, it's Sommers. Like, you know what I mean? For the Bronze Age or
Yeah.
something. Like, he could have definitely put together. Like, the problem with the Van Helsing movie was it was cramming a lot of different monsters together in one movie.
Yeah.
When Sommers was not given the green light to make the individual movies.
I feel like for the most part, Van Helsing, because I saw that in the theater, and
I
I
love
felt
that.
like that was the closest thing that you probably would get to a Castlevania movie.
Mm. Agreed. And I think that I just think that Sommers is a massively underrated director, and that we definitely need him
Mm-hmm.
today. And that had there been any brains in the Universal Studio offices, they would have probably taken a look at this film and then said, "Oh, you know who we need to create our dark universe or whatever? Stephen Sommers.
Yeah.
Let's just give him free, like a carte blanche almost. Let's throw him back out there. He can direct a good movie, and let's see what he can make out of a Frankenstein movie or Dracula movie or a new Mummy franchise or something."
I feel like historically, like the Universal Studios, like just the upper management has always kind of been at a loss for common sense, especially dating back to what was it, the lawsuit that they had with Nintendo back in the 80s for the they thought that they had the rights to basically sue them over Donkey Kong, and then they
Which is just
yeah, they found out that Donkey Kong or King Kong itself was a public domain, so they really had no bearing to sue. So Nintendo countersued the ever-loving mess out of them.
which you can't blame Nintendo.
Mm-mm. That
And
was
then-
that was their mistake to capitalize on.
Although what's interesting is how Universal and Nintendo are now welded at the hip.
Yeah, it's probably like penance.
Yeah,
Although Universal did make some pretty confusing mistakes beforehand.
That's fair. That is very fair to say.
House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula.
oh yeah, in the 40s. We saw those as part of our reviews.
Oh
Okay.
yeah,
House of Frankenstein and Dracula are not very good. Wow, were they ever bad? Two movies we do not recommend.
fair enough. I kind of stuck with the Hammer films.
Movies we recommend to toss them in the fire.
Yeah, I was a Hammer film guy, so like
Same.
I tended to lean more into the
Silver Age.
yeah.
Hammer is just fun.
Yeah, they, you know what, Peter Cushing and Christopher
Christopher
Lee were just, they weren't afraid to just go all out just to make something interesting.
Mm, that's very true. And arguably, like I like to argue that Sommers is the guy who closes out the Bronze Age of horror,
Hmm.
and that like his Van Helsing movie is the last swan song of it,
I could see that.
and that after that you get a bit of a dark age, and then you get the maybe another age, maybe an iron one. I don't know. I've not seen too many horror movies that have impressed me of late. They're mostly jump scare nonsense.
Yeah,
But
I've been
that-
avoiding a lot of the newer stuff.
that's the beauty of this Mummy movie. It doesn't rely on cheap jump scare. I've heard what was it? Nostalgia Critic mock it and say, "Oh, well, it's that stupid movie that tried to get us scared of scarabs and bugs." And I'd argue that's not really the intent. but in that there's some genuine intelligent horror here. The real horror is being trapped with the Homdai curse on you, or being one of the Americans whom Imhotep is hunting down.
Yeah, getting my flesh ripped from my body is kind of a legitimate concern.
Yeah, and arguably, like, actually, I will bash Nostalgia Critic in a way. I don't think him or anyone who says, "Oh, it's just trying to get you scared of bugs," really gets this movie. I don't think they understand it, or that they actually put any thought into the fact that the whole flesh ripping thing is kind of creepy.
Yeah,
And disgusting.
there's a lot of things that I wouldn't want happen to me that happen to the characters in this movie.
Yeah, and there's almost not a character spared from some sort of horror.
Yeah,
That may be O'Connell, who's dominating the scene.
I mean, in the beginning, he had some consequences for his actions, but
Very true. Okay, I didn't mean to say that he didn't have consequences. I just meant he
Yeah.
didn't have like horror stuff happen to him.
yeah, that wasn't a point to take you down. It was just more of a like
Uh,
here's a everybody did have like something negative or negative repercussion to their actions.
Yeah, like Rick ends up going to a bar after he gets back from Hamanatra, getting drunk, and looking for a good time, only to get himself chucked in jail.
Hmm. He had a very good time.
Yeah, yeah, I love that scene. This I did not know, but when I heard you were coming, I decided to ask, uh, uh, why, and apparently he had a good time. And then I just love as he said, he says, apparently he had a very good time.
That was
And
a great introduction.
Yeah, and I just love how he says, "Who's the broad?"
Yep.
And we're immediately shown that he's uncouth. He's not exactly civilized.
He's a bit of a rogue, yeah.
Yeah, he's a rogue, and well, he's your average American. So,
Yes.
I'm joking. But then you've got the fact that I just like how Jonathan is asked, "Do I know you?" And you have him, "Oh, I'm just the regular sort of missionary chap, spreading the good word and all."
Just straight decks him.
Yeah. But what I love about Fraser's acting is how in the scene before he decks him, you see the light of realization enter his eyes. Like,
Mhm.
wait, this guy picked my pocket. Like he recognizes him. Then he decks him. So that, you get a good character moment there. Especially for Jonathan.
Pretty much comment. Yeah, I probably deserve that.
Well, no, Jonathan says, "Oh, it happens all the time."
Yeah,
Is what he-
I'm sure it does, though.
Jonathan.
Yeah, but he's such a likable character for some reason. Like, if you were dealing with him in real life, you'd probably think him scum and you'd want to deck him all the time.
Yeah, he's a
But-
straight scoundrel, but yeah, there's something likable about him. I just can't.
And what's funny is that, to be quite honest, Evie ends up being just as much of a rogue as him.
Mhm.
She's picking people's pockets, stealing the key or a book from
Stole the book.
someone.
Yeah, you know
Yeah,
that's
and-
stealing, right? It's-
Not according to you or my brother. It's borrowing. Look, I'm like, the idea of property is 9/10 of the law. Well, I think someone should have introduced these characters to that concept. Well, maybe not Rick. Rick understands the concept.
yeah,
It's the two Brits who just clearly have no conception of it.
I was gonna say, didn't the brother sister they grew up in Cairo for most of their lives because their mother was Egyptian and their father was
Yeah.
British.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Their father was from England and their mother was Egyptian.
Yeah,
And I think they ended up bouncing between England and Egypt, which the thing is, the parents were the finest patrons of the museum
yes,
where Egypt was at. But I just actually the actor who plays the curator, he's in a lot of flicks. He's in The Librarian.
yep,
He's in recently. Dan and I have been reviewing for our History Corner the Chosen series.
hmm
And he's in there. Actually, he's really good in there. But the trouble with that series is the writing. It's not always very good. And the and this guy, like this actor, he's just so good at just getting mad. Like, fix up this misshaver.
Yeah, I
Oh,
love
man.
that part. Well, how on earth does one get themselves in a situation where they're balancing themselves on a ladder
And then knock out everything in the library.
domino style? Yes.
I just like how her only comment is, oops.
And she's adorable in that messy bun librarian thing. That's totally my thing. My type of girl.
Yeah. And the fact that she comes with probably a Wessex accent or something only adds.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, if I were single, that's the type of girl I would go for.
Yeah, so when the logical thing to do would be to put that book aside, sort out the rest of them, take that book, go down, move that ladder over, and put it up.
No,
Yeah, you could have just walked down the ladder and just moved the ladder over. I was a warehouse manager for about 3 or 4 years, and it's easier for you to just climb down, move over, climb back up, and take care of it. She tried so hard to just lean over and put it over there, thinking that it was the easiest thing, and it just caused so much trouble.
Mm-hmm. And well,
I guess that's a personality thing, or it just displays what
yeah.
she is willing to put herself in the most danger for the things that she wants.
I think it's there to accomplish both.
Yeah,
Because it shows you she's willing to put herself in danger, but it also shows you she's a bit of a buffoon.
yeah. For as
And-
intelligent as she is prone to the most simplest of mistakes.
Yeah.
She's just lucky Indy wasn't there.
Oh, Indy would have helped down. Indy would have shrieked and hollered more than the creator did. But what's so interesting is how, like, we also get a sense that she's sheltered
Yes.
because of the way she behaves during the museum scenes. And she does mention that the Bembridge scholars rejected her application because she doesn't have enough field experience.
Mm-hmm.
But the only way to get field experience is to have the scholarship. So it's one of those catch-22s that all academics go through.
Yeah, I need a degree to get a job. I need experience to get what was it?
Yeah.
The experience credentials paradigm.
Yep. And it's also, you need money to get the credentials and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But the only way to get, it's this entire catch-22 2-3 times over. I basically used to, well, I was in academia, so trust me, it's not half as fun as it sounds.
Yeah, I've been an entry level graphic designer, so I kind of get it.
Yeah. But the difference between, say, Evie and Indy is that it's easier for Indy to get the experience than Evie. Evie is also, this is a case where her sex does play a role.
Yes, because of the time
Okay.
period. Yeah.
Yeah, because in the time period, you can't just send a woman out into the desert to go dig up bones and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's dangerous. And it's one of those situations where you really can't blame her for being reluctant to go.
Yeah, we're talking about the right after the Great War, like a little bit after the First World War. So things were definitely a bit more chauvinistic. We'll say it that way.
Yeah, and in movie, given the time period, even Rick's fairly open-minded about women.
Yeah, he's very worldly for the type of character he portrays.
What's up, that dog? Okay. But what's really funny is how later, when he's asked why did he kiss her, this shows another side of Evie that honestly wouldn't fly today because you can't have a female character be feminine.
Mm.
But Evie is remarkably feminine. she's very feminine, and she, well, the way she asks it, she's a little girl, basically.
Yeah, it's you can tell. Going back to your statement about her being sheltered, like that's one of the key points right there. It's also afterwards on the barge where she's in her nightgown, trying to distract herself, and she's like, "Girl, get a hold of yourself. That kiss wasn't even that great, anyway."
But the funny thing is, though, that we can't forget that chastity at the time was very important.
Yes.
So this could have, like, this sort of trip and that sort of cavalier treatment of her could affect her marriage chances later in life.
Yeah.
And getting married is absolutely important. And arguably, I'm actually going to criticize the third movie. It is actually very logical for Evie not to have had maybe 5 to 6 kids. And the only reason I say that is on average, people had between 5 and like 6 or 7 kids back then.
Yeah, it was heavy levels of marry and reproduce energy that was going on back then.
Exactly. So that's where in the third movie for the O'Connells to have only had 1 kid is a little weird.
I will say it did surprise me that they did actually have a kid in the second movie.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, and to be fair, I actually did watch the Mummy cartoon series. So yeah, it wasn't great, but
it was entertaining.
Yeah. So it was like, oh, they had a kid. That's kind of cool. Like, and the kid's actually kind of a mix between running off to do stupid things and smart.
Yeah, he's the perfect mixture of the two idiots who had him. I don't know how else to describe them.
And related third idiot.
Yeah.
The uncle.
We say that, but the audience has to know how much we all love the O'Connells. Like, they are just such... I don't know if I can think of any horror duology which has such a lovable set of characters.
One thing I actually liked about Evie and Rick was usually today we'd have the man being the intellectual and the woman being the more intuitive one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And being right.
Yeah.
Here, you have the woman that is the intellectual, and you have the man that's intuitive, but he is right at every corner of the way.
Oh, yeah, he's always right.
Yeah, he's got the world experience to just kind of balance things out, and when he scolds her for reading the book.
Didn't I tell you not to touch that?
Yep.
He
did.
He didn't agree to anything. I told you not to touch that book. Didn't I tell you not to touch that book?
Even an Egyptologist said it. Like, he woke up and realized immediately what was going on. It's like, don't read it.
Everybody is telling Evie, don't read it, but no harm ever came from reading a book.
About that.
And it turns out some harm came. She nearly ended the world because she read a book.
Curiosity got the better of her.
Curiosity killed the cat. Well, in this case, it didn't, actually, because the cat lives to the end.
Yeah, the cat was actually beneficial to most of the opening encounters with Imhotep.
Yeah. And don't sob, puppy. And sorry, he's crying because he wants all the attention.
Oh, that's...
what I also like is how we have a what I like is how each of the 3 acts of the film have a climax. Like the first, there's almost 4 acts to this film. You have on the boat, you have the climax, the battle, and the fire on the boat. And although in there, I just love how the characters just go, Americans. But Jonathan in particular, like when he sees the Americans just laughing and cackling as they're shooting every one of the Magi.
Yeah, it was there's a lot of stuff going on. The Americans were straight cowboys that whole film.
Yeah. That is one of the hating things about them.
I have a question from the chat. Some Digital Onyx says, "Who was the best side character in this movie?"
Best side character. Okay, Dan, you go first.
Oh yeah, sure. Give me the hard job of figuring out which character first. Okay. Oh, I have to say it's the British pilot.
Winston.
Winston.
Yeah, Dr. Bombay. Winston was mine actually too. Like, but I'll let you guys go through it first, and I'll explain why when it's my turn.
I kind of like the 3 Americans who get caught.
Those were good characters too. I didn't think I was gonna like them at first, and then like their personalities shone through. Like once you got back to the bar, and everybody just kind of realized that we screwed up.
Yeah, I like how they're very obviously Southie. You know, like they're from the South USA, and they have those thick accents, and they're just straight up stereotypes.
Yeah, they're all like Southern cowboys.
And I just like how, you know, they're such lunatics, and then when they were like the boat burns down, they're cackling the whole way through, shooting and killing everything, only to then say, "This is a messed up country." You're having fun. This is your vacation, and you're gonna complain about it? Like, what the heck's the matter with you?
And then they all jump off the barge.
This is a messed up country.
I mean, it's not America, especially not post World War I America.
Yeah, which was probably in a fairly good position, considering World War I messed up mostly Europe mostly Europe.
Yeah, that was that point where we're like, yeah, we might have made a mistake here. We're gonna go for isolationism.
Again, because you guys were isolationist.
Yeah, and at least until Pearl Harbor, but yeah.
Yeah.
So there was Winston. When I saw that Winston, I didn't realize the actor played Dr. Bombay in Bewitched, and I was like, it's Dr. Bombay, because he's played in a lot of things. He's been, obviously in Bewitched. He was in a lot of the '70s sitcoms. He played various roles in that. He actually returned to playing Dr. Bombay, and I don't know if you've ever seen Passions, which is a kind of 1999-ish soap opera that had supernatural elements. It was really absurd, and the absurdity is what kept people hooked on the show. It's like, what? Why are these things happening? Why is all these supernatural things happening? Why is there a vertically challenged young boy basically causing problems in this town with this 300-year-old witch? So he had there's a kind of a Bewitched callback where the witch's daughter, the witch gets impregnated midway through, I want to say 2001 or whatever, and one of the later seasons of the soap opera, and has a daughter named Tabitha, which was the callback to the Bewitched, obviously. And then Dr. Bombay shows up at one point. It's ridiculously. Wait, you're talking about Passions? Yeah, I'm talking about Passions. Yeah. So the guy to play with Winston in the movie was Dr. Bombay in Bewitched, and he shows up again in Passions as Dr. Bombay again. It was brilliant. So when I saw that, I was like, hold up. This is awesome. And Winston was probably one of my favorite characters because he always goes on about how I wish I would have died with my brothers in the Great War and blah, blah, blah. I was like, this man just wants a warrior's death. That's all he wants. And he healed when he
wants Valhalla.
And he's bored.
Yes. He's the what was it? The Air Force consists of just him. So like when O'Connell's like, yeah, we just need you to save the damsel in distress, defeat the bad guy. He's like, I'm in.
I just love how it's like you probably won't make it, and you have, golly, you really think so? Well, everybody else is we know has kicked it, so why not you? Then Winston, what was it? Hardlock, at your service.
Yeah, he's probably one of the most interesting side characters. My second choice would probably be Benny, as a kind of not quite the foil, but a foil, like, or henchman.
I'd say he's more a henchman. I just honestly, Benny is someone who every scene with him is so funny.
Yeah.
Him and Fred had such perfect chemistry.
It was like not quite the meta humor that we're stuck with today, but it is like little tiny hints of like fourth wall breaking like statements.
I like how when he first pops up after the prologue, you have, what was it? Oh, it's my old friend. Oh, well, if it isn't my old buddy Benny, I think I'm gonna shoot you now. You know, hey, think of my children. You don't have any children. Someday I might.
That's a lie.
And I just like how the conversation goes from there too. You always did have more balls than brains, O'Connell.
Yeah, he did.
And then he chucked off the boat, and he tries to he brings it on himself. Like when he taunts O'Connell, you just have him going, "Hey, O'Connell, looks to me like I've got all the horses." Yeah, well, Benny, it looks to me like you're on the wrong
side of the river.
Yeah, right.
I think that's the one thing that everybody kind of points to when they look at that movie. That's the one line where everybody's like, "Yep."
It's like Benny may comment that Rick doesn't have any brains, but he's the smartest person there.
Yeah.
The chat is getting a little bit livelier. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, they referred to the statement was so Winston's basically Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump.
That's one way to put it.
Kind of, yes. Like always wanting to die in battle because obviously that was his destiny. I watched this movie so long ago, and when will we discuss the film we deserve, the Jet Li Mummy film?
Oh, no. Hates us? What do we ever do in the chat?
We're innocent. At least I am. I don't know about Joe, but I'm innocent.
Ouch.
I haven't seen the third Mummy film, so again, I can't really say anything on it.
Movies
Stick with the cartoon.
Yeah.
I'll just say that much. Stick with the cartoon. You're better off of that.
The third movie so terrible.
Some Digital Onyx says I forgot about that film, and now I have to raise you to Scorpion King. See, I didn't watch the Scorpion King either, but I know the second movie was basically the backdoor pilot to the Scorpion King, and I still think that was the funniest final battle of any movie I've ever seen.
I don't remember it. I've seen it, I think, twice, and I've blanked on it.
Well, for the second one, like he basically stabs the Rock, and then out of nowhere, Imhotep just shows up from the side of the screen. No, he puts his arms out, and
You mean that? I thought you meant the Scorpion
No.
King.
I was talking about the second movie ending, which
yeah.
That was ridiculously hilarious. I remember watching that with friends, and we rewound it at least 2 or 3 times. I'm like, what's going on?
Stephen Sommers was clearly having fun that day.
Yeah, he was.
Imhotep's actor.
Oh, yeah, he was Darkman in the later movies as well. I think Darkman 2 and 3.
I have no idea.
Yeah, he was Imhotep. His actor was Darkman after Liam Neeson was Darkman in the first film, and the second and third one was that actor.
What's Darkman?
Oh. So homework assignment. If you get a chance, watch the first Darkman. It's so the director of Evil Dead, Sam Raimi, and Spider-Man films, he wanted to make a superhero movie, and it was basically he wasn't going to get the rights to do any superhero movies, whatever. So this was basically his. I'm gonna do this, and it'll show you that I'm capable of doing it. And I feel like the first Darkman was his foot in the door into getting Spider-Man. So Darkman, he had Liam Neeson play as a superhero that was like horribly burned and disfigured to the point of where he had no nerves, or had no feeling in his nerves, so he was able to just do this amazing stuff. And he also had the ability to create these masks, whatever, that would allow him to impersonate a lot of these mob bosses that he was trying to, that pretty much technically killed him.
Yeah.
So it was a great film. The first one's great. The second and third one, not so good.
All right. Well, we'll check it out.
We covered all 3 movies for Boss Fight at the Movies, and that's part of our season 3 run. So, they'll be up sooner or later.
Okay. Well, for this movie though, I just, it's not just that this movie has a lot of comedy. Now that I think about it, thinking back on and looking at my quick notes, mostly at the Camels and Hamunaptra appearance, what I like is the wonder that, like, because like how Hamunaptra just kind of waves in, you know what I mean? Like,
I love the way that actually or how it appeared with the sunrise.
Yeah, that it's one of those things which it fills you with awe and wonder.
It adds that ancient Egyptian mystique.
Exactly. That felt very Indiana Jones.
And it made me wonder, how come there aren't more horror films that try to aim for that level of wonder and awe? You know what I mean? Like, because this was something that occasionally happened in the Hammer movies.
Mm-hmm.
But since then, it seems like horror has tried to suppress or move away from the idea of wonder and something beautiful of that sort. And that's something that, I don't know, like, this is a scene that I find stays with you.
Yes. Mr. Bloodia says, is it Temple of Doom or Crystal Skull filled with awe? I would say Temple of Doom.
Oh, I was going to say something like, rather more like, how do I describe it? You remember the movie, have you seen the movie Equilibrium?
Yes, with Christian Bale.
Yeah, you remember the first time without those weird suppressants when he sees the sunlight.
Oh yeah, basically looking at the world for the first time without like being restricted.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. And that's kind of the awe I feel that you should kind of feel towards the first appearance of Hamunaptra.
Yes. Digital Onyx says it Temple of Doom with City of Gold Quartermain vibes.
Yeah. And although it's also funny how right after that in the race, O'Connell acts all shy with Evie. I think it's because she beat him in that race.
There was that, and just the way he looked at her after they had regrouped and got their camels. Because she was stunning in that outfit.
Oh yeah, she was gorgeous.
I was like, oh, so mousy librarian, but like a full-on smoke show when she actually cleans up. Fantastic.
Yeah. But you wouldn't describe her like you might say Cameron Diaz in The Mask, who you might describe as seductive, or something, or Catherine Zeta-Jones as something like with the term seductive. Evie you could almost describe her more as adorable.
Yeah.
And yet she is very smoking hot.
And classy.
It kind of was, yeah. It almost had that Pygmalion type of thing going on with it, where it's like, okay, if we get this woman and teach her how to be a lady and dress her in these nice clothing or nice clothes, and like you discover like, oh, she is really beautiful.
it's not just her that they do that with. It's also like, for example, Rick O'Connell comes off as a total cad at first, but as the movie progresses, by the time they reach Hamunaptra and he's giving the tool kit to Evie, you're seeing a heart of gold in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of good positive personality traits that are on display from the moment you see her, and even the bumbling aspects of her are still endearing.
And now, the funny thing is, much as I like the novels of the original trilogy of Star Wars, and I do love the Episode 4 movie, but one issue I kind of had with Leia and Han on screen is that they were not able to portray the kind of Evie and Rick O'Connell type of romance, which is what's in the novel. As this is not something that Harrison Ford or Carrie Fisher were able to pull off and able to demonstrate quite so well.
Was it a limitation of how the script played out, or kind of a limitation in the way Lucas was directing?
Well, Lucas was not directing, though. He did not direct Episode 5 and 6.
You're talking about Empire. Okay.
Yeah, Empire and Return of the Jedi.
I thought you were talking about like A New Hope.
No. A New Hope is George, and it's as close to the script as it can get.
Yeah.
Or I should say the novel, because you got to bear in mind each of the movies were originally novels before they were re-released as films, and the movies are adaptations of novels. And I'm not trying to bash the films. I just mean, I find I prefer the books, but because I get a better sense of what George was trying to do. With Rick and Evie, they have a similar background, because Leia does have her sheltered side, as does, not entirely, but she kind of does. And Rick, like Han, has that John Wayne type of swagger and Paul Piro type of air about him.
Yeah.
Except with Rick, he has a slightly shy side with Evie at one point, such as when he's handing the tools to her.
Yeah.
And you get a strong, this is where the actors and Stephen Sommers are able to bring out these multiple aspects of these characters in a couple of scenes that endears them very, very strongly to us, the audience. Okay. And that was my point. Rachel Weisz, I think is how you pronounce it, and Brendan Fraser kind of portray, in a way, a similar archetype of romance as Han and Leia, except better.
Yeah, I think there was a lot more between the two. The emotional connection and the chemistry was definitely better.
Which does beg the question, how did Rachel Weisz go for the most dull of all the Bond actors?
I don't know. So the chat is saying,
if they disagree.
No. O'Connell was smitten with Evie from the start, and I think that O'Connell didn't care about anyone until he met her, which I can kind of see. Well, that whole point where he's about to be hung and he just goes for the kiss.
Yeah, it does make some sense. In the novel, it's implied, but I don't think it's outright stated. So, yeah, I could see it.
Also,
I have to think about this.
Mr. Bloody also says, Leia never had such an impact on Han as Evie had with O'Connell.
Actually, in the novel, sorry to interrupt.
No,
in the novel, Leia and Luke are the ones whom Han credits with having redeemed him. And in the expanded universe, Leia was really the first person to truly believe that Han could be that honorable a guy. And so that kind of pushed Han to want to be as honorable as Leia believed he could be.
Ah, I see.
And so, same with Luke. But Luke, the thing is, Ben in the Episode 4 novel is very abusive towards Luke. And Ben is neglectful and cold, and deep down doesn't like Luke. and Luke is craving a father figure, and Han kind of feels pity for Luke.
Interesting.
And Han's kind of like, well, if Ben doesn't really care about him, somebody's got to care for this kid. Might have to be me. So there's a bit of that older brother, little brother relationship. But with Leia, she's the one who truly believes Han can change, can turn himself around. And that makes Han want to change. So Han is a very complex character in the books. And I'm not bashing Ben. It's just he's a very broken man in the episode 4, 5, and 6 novels.
I was kind of thinking in terms of that too. Is like, is he afraid to be attached to Luke because of what happened with Anakin?
He blames, part of him is doing the sins of the son of the father are the sins of the son.
Yeah, I can see that. When you said that he was being cold towards him, it's probably because he wanted to keep his distance, as to have to, if he had to, basically.
Well, the idea,
out.
The whole theme of the originals was that Ben is using Luke like a sword against Vader. This is a weapon, and Luke is to be tossed aside afterwards. But the trouble is that Luke rebels against the plan because he says, well, I can't kill my own father.
Yeah, there's good in him. I could feel it. Yeah.
It's not just that. It's the ideal of filial piety. Like, no, a son should never draw a weapon against his own father.
That's fair. Yeah.
But on the other hand, Ben doesn't use this exact argument, but says, like, yeah, well, that didn't stop Anakin from doing it to me, basically. And the thing is, when Luke redeems Anakin, at least in the novel, they go so far as to say he also redeemed Obi-Wan. So that, you get a sense that it's not just about saving Luke's father figure, but it's his grandfather figure.
Yeah.
So he's got to save both men at the same time. So in that regard, Han, like, Luke just goes on redeeming everyone. There's something in Luke. He might not be the strongest with the Force, like, say, Kyle Katarn is of his generation. But Luke is the greatest Jedi because he believes in the good in people. And he can save them. Leia in the novels is more powerful than Luke. But Luke is a better man. And there's a kindness in him that makes everybody just want to be better than what they are. And so you have Leia's love and Luke's faith that, for example, for Han, cause him to want to redeem himself. And that generally makes everybody try to redeem themselves. Like Kyle Katarn, I tend to say, is the strongest Force sensitive of Luke's generation. But the problem with Kyle is he probably would have turned to the dark side or turned away from the Force and let the galaxy burn if it was not for Luke believing in him and Luke reminding him that with great power comes great responsibility and pulling him out from the darkness and acting like a brother to him.
And that always does seem to be the underlying thing for a lot of the older media, is that the weight of responsibility, the need to actually want to fix the problems and not just make everything worse.
And arguably, as much as Jonathan in The Mummy is someone who is irresponsible, I would argue Jonathan does, like, just to refer to a brotherly bond, Jonathan brings out the best in Rick. In a way. And Jonathan does believe, to a limited extent, that there is a good side to Rick. And Rick does try to look out for Jonathan, even though, like he said, like, sorry for the whole punch thing, but after that, like, if
they were, like, they're kind of best friends after that, yeah.
They just needed Rick to punch him out once, and they're square. Like, and I love how when they're in the tunnels and you have Evie explaining mummification to Rick, Jonathan, like, yeah, we actually need to know this, and him and Rick are just on the same page.
Yeah,
at every turn. I think, though, that this also speaks to the relationship between Evie and Rick. And the thing is, Evie would need a man who's much more masculine than Jonathan, but also someone who could look out for her older brother. Like, because she's always looking out for Jonathan, but she kind of wants someone to take responsibility for looking out for Jonathan.
Yeah, I feel like with Jonathan and Rick's relationship, it's kind of like just going back to understanding how men are. Men will get into an argument with each other, and then like a minute later, they'll be once they find something that they have common interests in, they're the best of friends.
Yeah, that's probably true. And what I like about these two is just the actors also have really good chemistry. The Jonathan and Fraser actors, like they have really great chemistry in this film. And well, now a lot of other directors might have had Jonathan perish in the film, but no, I'm just saying. But I kind of like that Jonathan survives to the end.
Yeah, there was at least 2 instances of people making it through the end of the movie that I were like, oh, okay, I'm okay with this. I was surprised that they made this choice, but I'm okay with the results of this.
Ardeth Bay and Jonathan?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah,
I was
Detroit.
like, how did he make it out of there?
Yeah.
The movie wouldn't be the same without Jonathan.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan was fine. It was the other guy he was basically like overtaken by mummies, and he's
Yeah.
like, just go ahead. I was like, okay, he should be dead, but I'm okay with this because I like him as a character.
I like that they bring him back in the second movie.
Yeah, when the second one he pops up, and I'm like, hey.
I think everyone kind of goes, see him, Ardeth Bay. Yeah. And I like how in the second movie he just goes, this was my first bus ride.
He on the plane, he was like so excited. It's like I'm hanging off the wing of a plane. I'm happy.
What's funny is that in the novel that was written after this film, he's supposed to be deathly afraid.
I couldn't see it because he
I prefer him like he is in the film.
yeah, he's like just let me do it. Let me hang off the wing. I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah, the big proud Magi warrior.
Magi.
Warrior. Either obsessed with the plane or absolutely terrified. Either way, it's entertaining.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Magi are an interesting piece of lore, as they're basically mercenaries. But this film, I believe historically they were more mercenaries, but this film turns them more into kind of Egyptian knights in a way.
Guardians. What was it the former
Guardians of Pharaoh,
Yeah.
which fair enough. And you have, of course, Imhotep once unleashed starts to wreak bloody vengeance on everyone. What I wonder is, the guy with the glasses, why didn't the Magi just mercy kill him?
I don't know. It wouldn't fit in with the plot. I mean, considering that everybody who opened the box were doomed from the moment they did it.
On the other hand, it could be that there's this is where there might be a through line of slight Judeo-Christian morality to Ardeth Bay and his clan, in that
I could
the
see
ideal
that.
of thou shalt not murder.
I could see that.
Maybe they just see it as, well, it's not our place to commit such a crime.
And Fallen King, I'll read your chats. Well, let me read your chat real quick so we can move on.
Sure.
Fallen King said Ben could have ended Anakin. He should have felt guilty or been guilty. And also the prequels kind of diminish Ben's role.
I'm going to disagree and say I love the prequels more than the originals.
Well, yeah, I think considering the sequel trilogy and what the sequel trilogy has done for the Star Wars brand, I think a lot of people feel like the prequels are a lot higher.
I thought he was yeah, I never went to see any of the sequels. So
No, I watched the episode 7, and I ended my interest in the sequel trilogy from there. Once I realized that, yeah, this doesn't feel right, and this is probably going to be doing some weird things that I'm not going to agree with, I just kind of went back and watched the older ones.
I didn't want to go because I just looked up the plot and went, oh, same plot as episode 4. Okay.
Yeah.
And I ended up told by several original trilogy fans, who went to see it, and it's vastly superior to your filthy prequel trilogy, Joe. And I went, sure. Okay. And I went back home and I rewatched episode 1 and had a great time.
Yeah, it's funny because like the argument at the time for The Force Awakens was that, oh yeah, this is far and away better than the sequel or the prequels, and then like flash forward to the last movie, and everybody is like, those prequels weren't bad. It's,
Well, what I liked about the writing was it wasn't the same plot as episode 4, 5, and 6. And it was about expanding the lore, and you got to see the. Well, I just love all the lore and all the government structure and how the plot comes along. And we got to bear in mind, George was drawing a lot of inspiration from Shakespeare. So this is something that did end up serving as a catalyst for a lot of his ideas and his writing style. And the idea is that the plot will follow a tragedy of sorts.
oh, I see. Fallen King said, I do
And
like
personally, I find that
Oh, go on. I think you guys froze.
No.
Okay.
Go.
Oh,
No.
I do like the prequels, but knowing that Ben actually did beat Anakin to let him go kind of felt off.
Well, I don't think he intended to let him go. The guy was burning to death at his feet. I think he can survive. And Obi-Wan basically walked away thinking, Ben is better wording. At that point, Obi-Wan was already dead in spirit. I think Ben just saw it as he's already burning to death. Like, there's no way he can survive.
I see.
He didn't even occur to him that Anakin would get borged. Or Vader would get borged.
Yeah.
He probably should have predicted it given his experiences with General Grievous, but yeah, I think it's just a matter that he saw it as it's already over. What more could I do? But on the other hand, hey, in universe, in the last of the Jedi books, Ben ends up thinking to himself, I really should have finished him. So, Fallen King, you're very right. And it's something that Obi-Wan ends up thinking, what was I thinking?
You know what they say, hindsight is 2020.
Yeah. And that's what the idea was for George, I think. Like, that Obi-Wan has this hindsight, and he's like. But anyways.
Digital Onyx, before we get back into what we're talking about, Digital Onyx has a question. Would the movie prequel trilogy be stronger if the story focused around Kenobi and the journey of teaching, befriending, and fighting Anakin and his struggle of upholding the Jedi Code while seeing the flaws play out for those he loved and respected?
I'm going to say that the prequels followed the novels far more than the original movies did. Because if the original movies had followed the novels, we'd see a lot more Han Leia scenes. We'd also see a lot more psychological thriller scenes for Luke in episode 4. And there'd be a few more expanded scenes for episode 6. But for episode 1, arguably, we should have had a prologue of Anakin saving a Tusken Raider. And it's that Tusken Raider who in episode 2 tells Shmi.
Oh, okay.
So that's why Anakin freaks out and does what he does. It's because he's thinking, wait, it's to my mom. How could he do that to me? And the reality is that the Tusken did know. He did do what he did knowingly. And this is beyond Anakin's ken. Like, he can't understand this.
Yeah, basically, if everything were fleshed out a bit better, it would have helped greatly.
Well, I don't. You only need maybe 2 scenes: a prologue scene for episode 1 and 2, one of Shmi picking flowers, and the other of Anakin having saved the Tusken in episode 1. And I'd argue that's it. But my argument is episode 4 had like 30 minutes cut, I think, from it, and there were some of the best scenes. But it was on Spielberg and Lucas's wife's advice, and I don't think they had the best interest of the movie at heart when they offered the advice they gave. And Episodes 5 and 6, I think, should have had a lot more scenes from the book added in and a lot more detail fleshed out. But that's just me. I prefer the prequels to even the originals.
Yeah.
But
Fallen King says, and pretty much we probably all agree on this, if Disney didn't buy Star Wars, we might have kept getting some really good prequels.
yeah. But maybe we should have gotten a TV series set in the prequel era. That maybe would have warmed up people's hearts to the prequel era and maybe helped flesh it out.
Yeah,
Maybe that's what
it's kind of hard to show the events of a film from like the 3 movie kind of setup. Like,
yeah.
more of a
But
slow build would have probably helped out.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Let's get back into the mummy discussion though.
What's funny is that how Stephen Sommers introduces the leap of faith. Actually, this ties into Star Wars. There's a lot of leap of faith with Star Wars, but here it involves not shooting two Magi.
Oh,
That is a leap of faith to decide to trust two men who, or at least one man, who has tried to kill you a few times. So, what do you think of that leap of faith that Rick and the rest of his group have to do for
that
these two?
That was interesting, and there's a lot of things that were going on in this film that kind of made me feel like, yeah, we definitely had people that had a better grasp of writing in this time period. Like it feels like, and it's not that writing is dead nowadays. It's that
No.
with the lack of capable writers on board and a lot of mainstream things, it feels as if writing in itself is a lost art.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true.
So
And
it's one of those things where like the leap of faith, and there was another. It kind of reminded me of the callback to the beginning, where O'Connell's like wandering off in the desert and he looks back at the Magi, and they're like, "Should we kill him?" He's like, "No, we'll let the desert take him." And then he realizes his folly when he sees O'Connell again. He's like, "That man is strong."
yeah, and it's been what, I think 3 years in universe or something.
Yeah, it
And
was
he-
3 years after that.
He's like, wow, that guy came back. I just love that because you've got Ardeth Bay who just says, no, let the desert kill him. Why should we do it? It's a waste of ammo or something.
Mhm.
And you don't actually get where Ardeth Bay is coming from. He's like, what's the point?
Yeah. I mean, it's just one man, and he kind of
There's-
stumbled into the spot.
There's no way he can survive.
Yeah.
And then he comes back 3 years later and you have, wow, okay. Okay, I guess we're actually going to have to do our dirty work here. Because this guy is not going to die to the desert. And, of course, when they come back the second time, when Rick O'Connell returns to Cairo the second time, or maybe third time, I just love how the 7 plagues start dropping down. And this after, of course, Rick and Evie have had their squabble, which is one of the funniest arguments in the movie.
You're leaving. I'm not leaving. You're leaving. I'm not leaving.
But then we'll just have to find some immortal weapons. There goes that we again.
Yeah, she's very happy to basically nominate him for point on this one.
And this is the sort of thing that actually, now I'm not returning the conversation to Star Wars, but Leia and Han have a few conversations like this in some depictions.
It is funny
And-
because the chat is like kind of making the same like parallels.
Okay, so I'm slow today, and I'm right behind the chat here. Okay,
Oh, you guys are on the
I'm-
same wavelength, so it's good.
I'm glad the chat's patient with me today. I didn't get much sleep.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
But that said, what's interesting is that how O'Connell, when it comes time to go look for the Egyptologist, just initially goes, "All right, let's all go," only except for Evie, and everybody objects, and you've got him just going, "Okay, that's it." Picks her up, but I love how before that he's got this expression like, Is this a democracy? I didn't ask their opinions. I told them what they're. So he picks her up, chucks her onto her bed, locks the door, and I love how he threatens the other American who, to that point, has never shown himself to at all be cowardly. Like, you know what I mean? He's as reckless and impulsive as just about any American stereotype could be. And you just have O'Connell telling him, this door does not open, she does not get out, and no one goes in. Clear? Or something to that effect, and you have,
Yeah, she does call him a coward, though, for that.
Which doesn't really make any sense, because if he was a coward, he'd be afraid of her.
Yeah. Like, he's just solving the problem the best way he knows how.
Yeah. Yeah, no. But, well, it is what it is, and he goes off to find his old buddy, Benny.
Oh, if it isn't my old friend, Benny.
What friend? I have no friend. Other friend.
I love the fact that, like, Benny also, when he's confronted by Imhotep, he pulls out every religious symbol he has on every necklace he owns. And then finally, when he gets to the Star of David and starts speaking in Hebrew, Imhotep's like, oh, the language of the slaves. You might be useful after all.
Yeah. And, oh man, I just love the Rick I don't want to say plays nice with him because he chucked a chair at him, but says, and I just love how you have Jonathan in the background. Nice shot.
Yeah, there's a bromance budding.
I don't think Jonathan much likes Rick. Not Rick, but Benny. I don't think Jonathan much likes Benny.
People like Benny?
No.
Oof. Accurate.
And you have Rick. You came back from the desert with a new friend, Benny. Friend, you're my only friend. And he threatens to cut him apart with the fan, which is that'd be horrible. But it gets all the info out of him.
Yeah, it really does.
I know I'd probably squeal like a pig if I was threatened with that.
I can't say I wouldn't I would keep my mouth shut if I were threatened with like certain death and dismemberment.
Yeah. And yet, although Benny is the way he escapes, like kneeing O'Connell in the crotch and then just leaping out the window. I have to admit, that's actually very well written.
It's just scoundrel enough to work within his character.
Yeah. Well, I just mean that O'Connell's a muscle guy. And for someone of Benny's skinny and weaselly build, it might be the only way he could escape.
Yeah.
And, of course, Dan commented when we were watching that Imhotep in the next scene needed a breath mint. When he spews all those scarabs at...
the locust?
Yeah, the locust at the window.
Mr. Pestilence breath.
Yeah. But... And then he goes off and kisses Evie, which is just... Ew.
Yeah, that weirded me out, too. I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, how would you like to wake up to that?
And then you have O'Connell. You okay? I don't know. I have a little shaken up from Jonathan. It's just...
It's fair.
Yeah, Jonathan there was pretty self-centered and pretty funny. What the heck is that? Oh, that'd be my phone. One sec.
Okay.
Oh, I have...
Okay, so I'll read the chat real quick.
All right. Yeah, it was just random phone call.
Oh, I see. The chat says, Fallen King says, now that I think about it, Uncharted did take a lot from The Mummy.
Uncharted's a pretty good franchise. I haven't played much of the game, but I've seen a bit of it.
I played a bit of the first one. I actually own, I own everyone but the last one.
Mm.
I think the last one is when they started to pull that whole, we're going to throw away the main character for the female side character that we want to actually put more attention to.
That's not cool.
Yeah, It's what we come to expect from modern gaming.
Mm.
Why not go create another Tomb Raider game in that case?
Oh, that makes too much sense. So the Digital Onyx, what is the most notable death in a mummy? Funny. It can be funny, brutal, gruesome, or etc.
I think the one that comes off as, in some ways, the most brutal, I think, is either the one of the Last American.
Oh,
Because there we know that Imhotep is stretching it out. Because Benny ends up staring for a minute, then looking away and looking stricken as the guy's screams go on for quite a minute.
yeah.
Imhotep is deliberately torturing him. So that one is particularly brutal. But there's also the one librarian or museum curator who's literally torn limb from limb by the maddened crowds.
That one was brutal. Like just the way he like goes down and everybody just swarms him, and it kind of reminiscent of the death scenes from like Day of the Dead, where I think the military leader dude was just like choke on him as he's getting ripped apart by the zombies.
Mm.
For Digital Onyx, he says it's the scarabs. 'Cause the scarab death is, especially when they come rolling down the pathway, and one of the diggers falls over and it gets overtaken by them.
Oh god!
Automatically, it's like the old jokes about living in the inner city, where don't leave your car for like longer than 5 minutes on a curb in the inner city, because you'll come back and you might find the skeletal structure of your car on cinder blocks. Like I would like the moment he fell over, I was like, that skeleton's going to be on cinder blocks.
Mm. So, how about you two?
Most memorable death might be Benny.
Yeah, a well-deserved one.
Yeah.
And if he said to him about things coming,
Oh yeah, everyone gets their comeuppance.
Yeah.
and Egypt and comeuppance.
Yeah.
You want to talk about mythology and getting even?
Yep.
Oh, pretty much.
How about you?
For me,
Boltzmann?
the first, what was the American with the glasses, and just how his death was
Suffered.
Yeah, he was made to suffer at first, and then he gets eased into the whole thing, where he loses his eyes and his tongue, and
Yeah.
I'm so like, I felt so bad for him like immediately once that happened, only
Yeah.
to be tricked into my Lord Imhotep thanks you for your hospitality and your eyes and your tongue. And he's like, oh no.
Yeah. Benny was cruel there.
Yeah, that was very like that.
Benny definitely deserved what he got later for what he did to that guy.
Yeah, it was very very villain moment, or villain henchman moment.
Yeah.
Another memorable death I'll say is Winston.
He got what he wanted.
Yeah.
He even died with a smile on his face.
Yep. Knowing he was going to the English answer to Valhalla.
Yeah, he smiled and then was sucked into the earth.
Yep. But that last act of the film where they're rescuing Evie is just, I really like it. Especially when they actually make it into the sacrificial chamber. And, oh man, I love how you've got Evie trying to fend off the one Anck-su-namun mummy from strangling her.
Mhm.
You've got O'Connell fighting just about everything and its mother, and you have Jonathan who's just going, "It's a Stark." It's like like he's the only guy having a good time. It seems.
He's got the easy job.
I know.
Like just
And he's
decipher
acting like that's a hard job.
yeah, just decipher what's on the cover of the Book of Ra, so we can actually get these royal guards to do something.
And honestly, once he finally reads it, it's so funny how close Rick Oak came from dying. Like how the weapon's actually directly against his cheeks.
Yeah, I was like, that's close. You're cutting it super close.
And you have what was it? You have Jonathan, who, like the way he words it. Now, what I ended up commenting, and I think I always commented, Dan, is, oh, he didn't say go slay Anuk Sanamun. He said go screw her up, like go f her up, because the enthusiasm they take to just chopping her up is like, jeez, these guards. Clearly, they've been waiting to do this for a few thousand years.
Yeah, she had it coming. See, again, it goes back to the everyone has it coming.
But except for the trio are the only ones who don't really deserve half the trouble to get.
Yeah, it's in little tiny, like their punishments are a little less severe than everyone else's punishments.
Yeah. Actually, okay. Evie and Jonathan occasionally do deserve some trouble because
She read the book. She did read the book.
Yeah, and Jonathan tends to go sniffing around for trouble.
Yeah.
The only one who doesn't seem to want any trouble is Rick, and he gets it tossed in his face every minute of his life.
Mm.
Honestly, these siblings are nothing but trouble for him.
Ooh. Digital Onyx says, since I've been taking longsword classes, I've kind of had an appreciation for Brendan Fraser and his handling with a two-handed sword at the end of the film.
Two-handed swords are not always easy to use. I've had some minor training in Japanese katana. So, a few years ago, if I end up back in Japan, I'd like to pick that up again. If I end up in France, I'd like to pick up European swordsmanship. But yeah, definitely respect Digital Onyx, was it?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, he's been taking a lot of fencing courses.
Good for you. Fencing courses are just, like that's, I love that stuff. So, yeah, Brendan Fraser definitely did a great job with the swordsmanship in this film.
Oh, okay.
And even though for like one or two scenes.
Digital Onyx says Lichtenhauser style HEMA.
Okay. Cool. Well, keep it up and best of luck.
Yeah, that sword was beautiful, by the way.
The bronze sword?
Yeah.
Yeah. What I like is how they kept it bronze. They didn't make it iron.
Yeah, the way it was going through those chains, though.
Well, the chains were rusted.
Yeah.
So I don't think they would have held realistically against this, even a rock.
That's fair. I mean, 3,000 years kind of does make a difference in terms of metal density and.
Yeah. And the bronze sword was in remarkably good shape for some reason, in comparison to the iron chains.
Plot.
Plot. Yeah, plot. And hey, if anyone got that perk of the plot protection of having stable bronze weapons, I'd say it was more the mummies because, well, look what they did to Anuk-Sanamun.
Oh, the phrase "done up and run up" has is like all I could think of when I'm surprised they actually limited that to just the shadows. It's like, okay,
they just keep
there's a lot of off-screen like beating that goes on.
Like piercing from both the front and the back.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it.
Yeah. It was a party. So Imhotep, I know towards the end of that, just after realizing he lost his beloved again, for the third time.
Yeah, poor guy. Can't catch a break.
He's been waiting a few thousand years, so we've got a bad case of blue balls.
Yeah.
Whew. Yeah. Well, it doesn't get any better for him, considering.
No.
Because
And you've got
was it Jonathan? They finally get the Book of Ra open, read it, and then what to me it felt like a Mortal Kombat fatality, having the chariot come from the heavens and just snatch his soul right out of him.
Yeah. And then what I love is how in the lead up to that, you have, for the second time in the film, hurry up, Evie. Read faster. And you have her, you're not helping.
Patience is a virtue.
Was what she said the first time at the museum. And you had Rick who told her, right, not right now, it isn't.
Mm.
And then you have down in the caverns, it really is not a virtue there.
No,
But
you're on borrowed time.
Yeah. And I love how you have Rick. I thought you said this was going to kill him. Stabs. He's mortal now. In a way, she did kill Imhotep. In a way. She just simply returned his mortality to him. Technically, she brought him back to life.
Yeah,
'Cause he's not
it really did kind of like simplify things, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, I thought it would be easier than that.
On the other hand, I wonder, like, you know how he backs himself up into that pond that decomposes? I wonder if, in a way, that is. Now, I've got the theory that was no natural spring of water he backed into.
Okay, I can believe it. Yeah,
because the curse of the home die was broken when Evie revived him, and I got the theory that this thing recast the curse on him to some extent,
which would explain how he was able to return in the second film.
Yeah, that was always what I thought ever since 2001, when I was like 10 years old or something, and I saw that scene. I was like, wait, how did he go? Oh, when he backed up into the water, he did it on purpose because he wanted to be able to come back later.
Yeah, because that was
that's what I thought. That's what I thought at the time.
Yeah, I was thinking too, like, that was the one instance where you can tell that the special effect was it was showing his age just a teeny bit, because the way his face was kind of wobbling around on the CG, like, interpretation of him decomposing. Yeah. I was like, that's the one case where it's like, yeah, this effect isn't necessarily hitting as good as the other ones were, but it's still far and away better than a lot of the special effects that we have currently.
And now that I think about it, there's an undertone of one other thing. Now that I think about it, whenever Ardeth Bay makes reference to his religion, Jonathan does to his own,
which makes sense because they are parallels.
Yeah, although they're opposites as well. Jonathan would be Christian, so, and he does make some references to his Christianity. So weirdly, we do know Jonathan is religious. So that's another thing that I just realized, and that is fairly interesting. Well, I only noticed on this watch through. Now that I think about it.
Well, the thing is like there's an underlying similarity to all the religions, especially looking at just how Egypt handles its afterlife, and how other Christianity kind of handles its afterlife. And even when Benny pulls out all the little iconography to try to ward off Imhotep, there's that underlying theme that every religion has, just the basic premise of protection against evil, a hope for an afterlife, and just the little tiny things.
Yeah.
And Jonathan probably needs to go to confession quite a bit.
Oh, definitely.
Yes. Yeah. and not just because he's English. I'm joking.
Don't hold that against him.
I'm joking. I can't resist that joke. Sorry, we're friends.
No, that's fair.
Every once in a while, the funny thing is, almost every English person, every French person we've ever met, our fellow Frenchmen are always Anglophiles, same as us. But everybody pokes fun at the English. So it's just so easy with you guys.
We are very brash and impetuous at times. Yes.
Not that we French are much better.
That's
we're
fair.
just
You know, the world
Yeah.
would be a better place if we all just kind of went back to poking fun at each other, but then just kind of still have that shared sense of brotherhood.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, at least we've got it here on this channel.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like this movie, it's a movie that I remember people saying, "Oh, come on, it's just good." But when you look at it and you actually watch it, there is not a bad scene in the film, and there's not a badly acted scene for the most part. It can be funny. It can inspire awe in you. It can feel like a fantasy film, even though it's not a fantasy film. It feels like pulp. There's an old-fashioned adventure to it,
Mhm.
but at the same time, there's horror. This is a film that, honestly, it's aged really well, and I find outside the Scorpion King CG in the second one, that one's aged pretty well as well.
Yeah, it's a pretty
And
strong film.
and that's the thing, like the the thing about the Stephen Sommers films from The Jungle Book up through to Van Helsing is that no matter what, you're probably going to have a good time. You're at least going to have a few laughs. You're going to have a few moments where you shiver and whatnot. And there's one other thing this movie does, which you wouldn't think is very hard, but it's something that's very integral to a lot of fairy stories and horror films. And the old Hammer actors often described the horror films that they were making as fairy stories. And that's that there's a happy ending, or at least something approaching it. There's a beginning, middle, and end. It's self-contained, and there's some closure to it. And the trouble is that since the Van Helsing movie, you have, or at least maybe it might be better to say, since the Mummy 2 movie, most horror films just have that jump scare at the end. And I always end up thinking, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, what's the point? Ooh, jump scare, whatever. It's not actually scary. You're just throwing something at the screen. You're basically vomiting at me. Of course, I'm going to react with a bit of revulsion. You vomited on me. But you'd think that closing it out in a way that, like, I get that you need you do need some flicks where the villain wins. You do need those.
Yes.
Technically, in a way, like if you look at one horror comedy film from the 40s, Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein, the Invisible Man wins at the end. But
okay. Yeah.
like he wins at the end. So the villain does win in there. But on the other hand, and I know that's a joke, but like you look at even the you look at the Friday the 13th Part 2, the villain, that one kind of, I think, started the jump scare thing, but Friday the 13th Part 2, the villain basically wins. Halloween 4, the Shape, that is to say the demon that possessed Michael Myers, wins in the end by possessing Jamie Lloyd. It's fine to have the villain win at times, but it's also fine to occasionally have him lose.
Yeah. I think a lot of it too. You can even make the argument that in the Hammer films, Dracula wins to some extent, like at least a large portion of the times.
Yeah, he keeps coming back.
Yeah.
He's a cockroach.
I mean I feel like the Hammer films were the strongest instance of the idea that Dracula always comes back.
Yeah, they were, and even Frankenstein, Victor Frankenstein, as portrayed in the Hammer films, for at least a few of them, he's a villain. So he wins in the end in some of them.
Yeah,
So
especially in the Monster from Hell.
yeah, well, yeah, and that's the thing. But like with the Mummy, you're glad to have that happy ending. It feels achieved. But if the movie was made today, they would just have Emotep, probably like jump scare and probably slay Rick O'Connell or something, or Evie, and you'd be like, really, seriously?
Or they
And I
probably
know,
have him like come up from behind of Benny, like when he was in the cave in the tomb or whatever.
yeah, which would be pointless. I mean, why? And I think that maybe what horror needs is to go back to those kind of Hammer endings. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
monster died, that's it. Don't jump scare at the end. And I blame Blumhouse. Blumhouse doesn't is a terrible studio. I've yet to see a good film come out of them.
In the beginning, when they were first started making movies, that I was like, well, this is an interesting way of conducting like horror, or at least trying to bring horror back. And then now I'm just like, I'm better suited at watching other stuff. I feel like when it comes down to it, horror does need to go back to its simplistic roots.
Yeah, it does. And no jump scare at the end. That's so tired.
So, H.P. Lovecraft's cat says Psycho started the jump scare, or at least kind of had a beginning in the slasher genre.
I haven't seen the film yet.
Well, yeah, the
I'll,
original Psycho, that's definitely something you probably should check out.
I'll check it out.
That was like Hitchcock at his prime. So it was a really. I love the fact that Psycho, the original Psycho, it kind of gives you that false main character,
Hmm.
and then it like pulls the no, never mind that. Here's the actual main character. I think a couple other movies did that. Brian De Palma's Dress to Kill did a really good job with that, where the false main character at the beginning, and then all of a sudden, the person you thought was the main character was the killer's first victim, and then it leads you into the main character stumbling upon the death of the false main character. It was like it's Brian De Palma does a really good job with his films anyway, so the way he laid that out, it was just like great, and he's great at cinematography as well.
Mm. Cinematography is always something important in film.
Yeah, Brian De Palma directed that movie. He directed Carrie. He directed Phantom of the Paradise and Scarface. So he's pretty good with the cinematography. He knows the shots.
Something he has in common with Sommers.
Mm.
Stephen Sommers has some great cinematography in his films.
I find that as I get older, I like cinematography. Like if a movie has really good cinematography, I can look past some of the other faults.
Yeah, yeah. And it seems to be a lost art these days.
Yeah, it's because people are so focused on just celebrity and TNA and gore and that with horror movies.
I think that now that I think about it, the only cinemas that seem to be focusing on that, like still produce some decent cinematography, might be Japan, Korea, and uh, actually that might be almost it.
Yeah, I could see that. There's a movie
Oh,
called
and
House that I need to check out.
Quebec. Quebec can still do it. I
Yeah,
recently watched Téléfilm, some French films from Quebec. Quebec's not restrained by the EU, and weirdly, they're not really abiding by Trudeau's mandates and diktats. So the films are still well made, and we have some really good misogyny in those films.
there's nothing wrong with misogyny. I'm clearly okay with it.
But actually, the films, like, honestly, I've watched a few French films, and every single one has a man slapping his wife at some point, which was pretty funny. And
When I lived in Canada for that hot minute, you guys had some great television back in like 1999.
oh yeah, we did. But the English side of Canada only gets like only has American cinema, and the French side is more in coordination with France or French-speaking Africa.
Uh,
So, and I think occasionally Japan. So, like, you just get this very different cinema from. It's like two different countries, really. But well, Canada basically is. You have the east of Ontario, which is all French for
yeah,
all intents and purposes, and Celtic, and they have their own cinema. And you've got the west, which is all English and whatnot. And the east has far more art, has better food, has better everything.
yeah. I was on the east side because
Oh, yeah.
I had
It's better.
yeah, chat room relationships, and like I was like, oh, I've never been to Canada, and went up there and kind of spent 6 months with this woman, and got to watch a lot of great television, and like I got to experience quite a bit of things. I had poutine for the first time, and that was actually really good.
I didn't like it when I tried it.
Hmm.
I'm French, and I didn't like poutine.
It was one
And
of those things where it's like I would try it, but I know now as I get older, my blood pressure cannot handle it.
well, what the French can do with potatoes and steaks are what I like, and burgers. And well, when I went out east myself, I ate some bacon burgers.
Oh,
You take bacon and you throw tomato, mayo, mustard, ketchup, relish, and bacon all together. It was delicious. I know
oh,
it sounds weird, Dan, but the recipe was really good, and the meat was something like I think local cow meat, and it was just from Newfoundland. It was like, wow, what is this?
as now I'm a transplant Nebraskan, so like having local like meat and dairy is top notch.
Oh, oh yeah, yeah. That's always better than what you get in the store.
Yeah, yeah. We are kind of fortunate because we don't have skyrocketing like meat and dairy prices here as opposed to the rest of the country.
We have the skyrocketing prices.
Yeah,
Um, but that's another reason why I want to move east, is because lower prices.
I understand. I mean, that's kind of why I moved here originally. I lived in Virginia, and Virginia was very highly taxed, even though it was a military town, or where I lived in was a military town. But it was like if you weren't military and you weren't shopping at the commissary, you're getting taxed to death. So I moved to Nebraska thinking, oh, okay, less taxes and everything, and I kind of realized I liked it here, even though I miss going back and forth, especially when my mother is still alive. So it's like going to visit and spending time with my family was great. This is the last time I went for everything that was going on or whatever. I realized that like, yep, I am now officially in my 40s because all this rich food that exists over in Virginia is too much for my body to handle. Oh,
But yeah. Any other thoughts on the ending of the film?
I
Um,
I
I like
really
when Benny
enjoyed.
loses all the gold and then they just escape with it.
Yeah, yeah. They. He's like, oh, should we grab the gold? No, no, we shouldn't. And then you realize that he actually Rick kind of snaked a couple of pieces.
Oh yeah, they grab all the gold that Benny had loaded up on the camels, and it's like
It's,
they get the reward, and Benny had to do all the dirty work.
it's like here it is. They dropped the Book of Ron, and
Oh yeah, you lost it. You dropped it. But you dropped it. You dropped the book.
Don't have
then
time.
Come on, Navy.
and then you have
The
the
gold. Oh, can't we just? There's no time, Jonathan.
and then they drag him off.
Yeah, Benny definitely like came in and hooked them up with the riches unintentionally, of course, and it made it worth it. I really love the way the movie ended. because the sunlight just hits the gold at the right angle to where it's like, oh yeah. I forgot there was a whole chest of treasure just sitting just outside of the tomb.
Yep.
Also, had Benny not flipped that switch, they probably could have like slow walked their way out and took everything.
Yeah, and that's all Benny's fault.
Yeah, I mean, again, consequences. He got what he deserved.
But in a way, had they slow walked, would the scarabs have come out?
That's a good question.
So does that mean that he saved them even as he denied them all that treasure?
If that was the case, then that's actually a really well written way of ending that.
I'm just unsure. Like, it's worth questioning.
It really is. It's just if that were the case and if that were actually planned, that was really well written. Credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
But at least the gold goes to good use.
Oh yeah.
It's true.
Very good.
It definitely funded their second adventure.
Yeah.
And their mansion.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Like-
that's right. That's right.
They live in a mansion in the second movie.
They're very well off due to the spoils of the first film.
Yep. And yeah, the second one, they're just loaded down with gold. And, well, not gold, but they're loaded with wealth, and they've clearly spent it well.
Hmm.
If only. But they're also having to babysit Jonathan, who's developed a taste for getting into trouble.
That's fair.
That's what got everyone into this mess to begin with.
It really was.
Yeah, I guess.
Had he not presented her with the key, none of this would have happened. But I guess if he hadn't stole the key from O'Connell, and then how do you have the nerve to steal the key from O'Connell and then come back and ask him to help you find your way back to the city of the dead?
In his defense, he didn't. O'Connell did not originally recognize him. It's not until he leaned right into his face when he said, like, I've seen you before. And Jonathan says, oh, no, I just have one of those faces. Leans in real close. And then you have Rick, who just looks at him like, oh, wait, I know you. And he punches.
It's
So-
you.
Yeah. And yeah, like, I just love how that scene plays out. That's one of my favorite scenes, just because Brendan Fraser does such a great job not acting like he doesn't recognize him. Then when he does, he just immediately acts like lightning there.
I also feel bad for what was the name of the one guy that trailed along with them?
I don't.
Okay, yeah, because I was like,
Remember-
he got it pretty bad in that movie too.
But on the other hand, the guy who was going to kill O'Connell did end up also groping Evie. So, like,
Yeah,
or at least implying that he'd like some fun time with her.
no bad
Which-
deed goes unpunished. Yeah, he says, I am quite lonely.
And I like how she smacks his hand and everyone in the entire prison laughs at him. He deserved it.
Yeah,
But not
that-
like just the smack. Like, I don't think he deserved to perish the way he did. That was horrible.
oh, that was horrible. But yeah, in
But-
terms of horrible deaths, that was notable.
Yeah. Yeah, all the deaths in this movie are notable. It's interesting that Sommer goes more for for quality deaths rather than a quantity of blood or deaths or whatever in the film.
I think that's the appeal. It had that classic sense of like if you go to the early horrors, like for pre-70s horror.
Yeah.
A classic monster movie rather than a slasher.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, clearly Sommers was a fan.
Yeah, it
So-
was like everybody's fate was off screen to an extent, but you still saw through
Enough.
shadow play what was going on.
Yeah, enough to get a sense of horror.
Yeah.
Sommers is one of those directors who's a master of horror, I think.
I can see that. I can agree with that.
Yeah. The fur movie notwithstanding.
Fair. It's, I still have not. I guess eventually I'll bring myself to watch it. I've in the last couple of years I've brought myself to watch quite a few films that I didn't necessarily want to view, but you do for the sake of your audience, I guess.
Masochism is a thing on many platforms.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to watch Ghostbusters 2016, but then the audience demanded it, and
All right. So what Dan and I usually do at the end of every one of our movie reviews is we rate it from 0 to 4. 4 being perfection, 0 being waste this piece of filth.
Mhm.
So this is where I'm going to throw to you two. How would you rate this film?
I would say, I would give it a 4. Honestly, like it was, especially considering that we have been subjected with a lot of modern films, and I've subjected myself to a lot of modern films.
Yeah,
This was a breath of fresh air.
yeah, it definitely was.
I would say a 4 as well, because there's nothing to really improve.
I'm just thinking. I'm gonna say 3.3. I want more.
Yeah, I can say that. Only reason why I say 4 is because it gave me a lot of things that I was missing from cinema.
Yeah, yeah. It's got action, romance, drama. It's got just about everything.
Yeah.
And I hope the chat's not being too harsh with me going 3.3.
No. I think the most commentary you got so far is that you should definitely go see Psycho.
All right. No, like the chat's probably right. I should see it. I
Yeah.
know I had it on my list at one point to see it, but that was like 3 or 4 months ago, and life just got in the way.
Understandable.
So you know what? I'll just tell the chat like I'll work on that in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
But we've got a lot of reviews coming, mostly of Universal Monsters, and I gotta find one of them. Our Abbott and Costello and Meet Frankenstein review. I don't think I've uploaded it. And
I was gonna say that's a good.
monster movie.
It's a good way to kind of advertise for your channel too, because like these guys definitely need more views to their work. These guys work harder than I do. I'm gonna put it out there.
I don't- we definitely like we have a horror channel called Nightmare Reviews over on YouTube, and we do a lot of horror and Solomon Kane stuff. The Solomon Kane stuff is like Solomon Kane is horror, but that's like the most we go outside the monster movie stuff.
Yeah.
And other than that, as far as what the Mummy fans might like, we do a lot of pulp content for Conan the Barbarian. So I don't know if they'd be interested in our Brothers Saborian channel.
Oh, by all means, advertise everything you possibly have, because you never know. Like somebody watching this, just like say if they're on a rewatch or whatever, and they might be interested in like just about any type of content. You don't know if you're gonna make a new fan or not.
Yeah, and we've started taking to doing written reviews over on Substack under the Brothers Crin.
I need to start doing Substack. I have a Substack account, but I have not done any written things.
Okay, then we'll have to follow each other out there. We also occasionally upload our podcasts over there, and we just started a Redwall podcast that's going to be a Substack exclusive. And yeah, we're also writing some serial novels for over there.
Nice.
Yeah, and we do have plans to rewrite and edit vast swaths of our vampire novel that we were working on a while back.
Okay.
Our own little monster story that is written in the Bram Stoker like journal entry style.
Nice.
We want to produce serially like once a month.
Okay.
So that's got to be something I got to fix up the first the first journal entry. But so far, we've got a African Gone with the Wind style fantasy story, inspired by Nigerian and Swahili mythology. We've got an Anglo-Saxon story, which I really like, Baron Cub, about a father and a son. And we've got also a murder mystery horror monster Frankenstein style story.
Sounds like all your bases are covered pretty much in terms of stories.
Yeah. The serials novel stuff is just for practice, and once the novels are completed, we'll just compile and self-pub those.
I can live with that. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, but yeah. Sorry for the long-winded plug.
Oh, by all means, like if we're doing a stream together, I feel like I would be less of a host if I didn't get you to advertise your wares.
Thanks. But as for those who might watch this on Nightmare Reviews, because I plan to download this and upload it over on YouTube.
Okay.
And well, I do hope everyone who watches it on YouTube are going to go over to. And you know what? I think I'll also upload this on Storyfire. I'm also over on Storyfire. So.
Oh yeah, I did have a conversation with some of the Storyfire guys, and I was like, yeah, I do want to set it up as just I have to get through just what seems to be the busiest time of the year for me, work wise.
Well, I think all I'll say is that people should jump from Storyfire and YouTube and over to your Rumble, because you do some great content. Oh, and also over on Twitch. Your art streams are great.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to pull off what I did earlier, and I was like, yeah, I had to get the character designs done before October 31st. That's my personal goal. It's like at least if the main story characters are designed completed, I can go back and just finish the background designs and everything else, and I'll have everything where I'm started. HP Lovecraft's cat says a new spicy joke. Doomslayer, Solomon Kane, and John Constantine walk into a drag queen story hour. Error 404.
Oh boy,
that is very spicy.
I'm just showing Dan one of the art pieces you did earlier.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Looks great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every once in a while, I have a little teeny twinge of greatness happen. Like I kind of joked around about this post my mother's funeral, but I was like, every time I draw, I feel like she's always with me. So it gives me a little reason to keep drawing, or at least trying to outdo myself at every turn. So it's like, if I do that, at least I feel like I'm still I'm connected to her in some way.
Well, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
You have to draw more.
I know. I gotta find the time. Having a 5-year-old and like just a family is very difficult to try to find the time to do things you want to do.
I get that. On some level.
Yeah. One of these days, I mean, she'll become a teenager. She'll want nothing to do with me at some point. So I just have to wait it out.
One can hope. Joking. No. Means you've got, 10 years still to find her, I think, as Liam Neeson said in The Taken.
Yeah, just about. I mean, she's already on a good path, like, personality-wise, and she's smart as a whip, so, like, I think she'll be fine. But at the same time, I'm like, let me just kind of sit off to the side and kind of slowly ease her into the right paths to take.
Well, that's enough plugging your kid on the channel. So I'm joking. No, actually, if she ends up turning out anything like you, she'll be great.
Oh, she wants to basically like have her own YouTube channel and everything, and I'm just like, hold off. It's just.
I think that you should maybe guide her to a regular day job.
Yeah,
and she could have a channel on her time.
Yeah, a friend of mine is having the same problem. It's like his daughter wants to be an influencer, and I'm like, hold off. Do something
hoping
meaningful.
I'm hoping to guide my kids towards becoming a plumber.
Yeah,
Something.
trades are really good, especially now. Like we have, there's a whole generation of people that aren't really computer savvy, considering the fact that they spend most of their time on the internet. So let's try to get more infrastructure oriented people out there in the world, because I feel like if not, we're going to be in deep trouble.
Yeah. Well, we got to get going. I got to eat.
Yes, and I got to make dinner, so we will end this, and I think we had a really good conversation. I really enjoyed having this conversation about the Mummy. I was more hyped about this after I watched the movie. Before I was like, I don't remember half of the stuff about this movie, and then after I watched it last night, I was like, this movie is fantastic.
Well, next time we're going to be doing Conan the Destroyer.
Oh.
Oh, that's a terrible one.
There is some really good quotables in that one, though.
I guess. And after that, I think we should probably do The Mummy 2. The Mummy Returns.
That would, yeah, I think that's good. I think that when my friends and I, when I ever go back to Virginia, my friends and I have this thing where we'll quote Grace Jones in Conan the Destroyer, grab him and take him. Like,
well, my hope is that we get these two movies out of the way before December at some point, because December is really the time for Christmas movies and Christmas horror.
My life hopefully won't be as crazy as it is recently.
My life's going to be crazy in November.
I was going to say same. You have similar like craziness going on in your lives as well. So
yeah. But
on that note, we're going to get out of here. Thank you for joining us. Please check out the Brothers Crin and their content and their various YouTube channels and endeavors. There's some really good content in there, and if you're a big fan of sword and sorcery, pulp, or horror, there is something for you there. And obviously, my stuff, please check out my stuff. Well, I'm going to be doing some horror Let's Plays, at least 2 before Halloween. And hopefully I can start doing regular video content once work kind of calms down enough for me to do so. So thank you for joining us for that, and we will see you guys next boss fight. Take care. Have a great rest of your weekend.